Hola, yo soy Horacio Pérez y esto es Investigando la Investigación, un podcast donde investigamos cómo investigan los investigadores tanto en la academia, industria, independientes. Todo ello mediante entrevistas y debates abiertos, técnicas y estrategias para mejorar todas las partes del proceso investigador y, no menos importante, opiniones abiertas que espero llamen tu curiosidad y te hagan también reflexionar. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It always depends from the place we are listening to this podcast. And I would like to welcome today our very special guests, Francesco Perono Casiafoco. Hello, Francesco. How are you?
Hello. Everything okay? Thank you.
Great. And Shiyue. Hi, Shiyue. How are you?
Hi. Oh, I can see. Fine. Thank you.
Okay. And today we are going to talk about the very interesting research line that Francesco Perono and Shiyue are currently working on. But I would ask first, Francesco, if you can give a very brief introduction about who are you and how did you get into the research work that you are currently doing.
Yeah, thank you, Horacio. I am Francesco Perono Cacciafoco. Currently, I am an associate professor in linguistics at Xi'an Jiaotong Liverpool University in Suzhou, Jiangsu, China. Before being here, I was in Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. I'm a linguist, I'm a historical linguist, so I study the origins of languages, and I'm a language documentarist. So I try to document endangered languages which are risky to disappear soon. These are my main specializations. I'm Italian. I studied at the University of Pisa in Italy. And then because of many reasons, when I was younger, I left. So before Singapore and now currently China. So this is what, more or less.
Okay. And Shiyue, can you briefly introduce you?
Hi, my name is Shiyue, and currently I'm a university student who's major in linguistics, and I'm a research assistant of Professor Francesco, and my research interest mainly covers about the field linguistics and anthropological linguistics, and also some cognitive linguistics. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Very, very interesting. So I would suggest to start. Can you quickly tell us? I read a little bit about a book that Francesco published, a book called Place Names. Don't worry about all the information because I will leave in the show notes all the links to all the publications and website of Francesco and Shiyue. But my first question would be, what was your main motivation when you started to work on this book, Place Names, and what is this book about? Very briefly.
Yeah, there are two main points or two main reasons. You know, as a historical linguist, I reconstructed the origins of languages. I'm an etymologist, so I reconstructed the history of words. And when you try to reconstruct the history of languages, of course, they change over time. In the European languages, for example, and the lexical items, the words we use today, like you and me, they change over time at a certain rate of speed. When you need to go back in time, you need to refer to more stable lexical items, and those more stable lexical items generally are place names. Place names don't change very much over time. Place names are preserved over time. Sometimes when there is a change in population, the new people speaking a new language, they don't erase them completely. They preserve them. So they are sort of linguistic fossils to reconstruct the past. Therefore, when you study historical linguistics, in all the language families of the world, place names are very important because they are tracks, they are fossils, sometimes living fossils, which is a paradox, and they allow you to discover and to the voice of ancestors who live in a time without writing, for example. So, I mean, place names are relevant for my study for that reason, because they are very special lexical items. You can go back in time in prehistory before writing, and you can still understand something of the spoken language of our prehistoric ancestors. For the book itself, the book was born just because of a contingency, how to say. I was in a Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. I was teaching a course in toponymy and toponomastics, the disciplines of the study of place names. And every week I was providing my students with readings as usual, but they were telling me, okay, this article is very interesting, this paper is great, this chapter is very good, but why don't you give us a textbook or a handbook in toponymy? And the answer was that there was no textbook, no handbook in toponymy. A lot of beautiful, very comprehensive, spectacular academic literature about place names, but not a volume, not a single volume, not a source in a single volume about place names. Therefore, from that course in NTU Singapore, I thought, why not to write a book, a single volume about place names, not only for students, also for scholars, as a sort of sum of this toponymic knowledge. And the idea started from that moment. It was 2017, 2018. So with my colleague, Francesco Cavallaro, I wrote a sort of outline for the book, and we sent it to Cambridge University Press. Generally, when you propose a book to an important academic publisher, you need already to send them like the outline, but a couple of chapters already written, references and so on and so forth. But I had just that idea. So I just wrote the outline. Ellen Barton in Cambridge told, yes, I like the idea. And so they approved it. And the challenge was that after that, the book had to be written. And in any case, we were able to write it despite COVID, despite all the disruptions and so on and so forth. Of course, it was very long, from 2018, I think, to 2023, but the book was published finally in March, after a lot of revisions, comments by reviewers, changes, adjustments. In any case, the original idea, which is still the aim of the book, is to provide students and scholars with a source in single volume about toponymy. So clearly, if you want to study toponymy, you need to refer to the huge scientific literature about toponymy. But to start, the book at least is there. You have a book, you don't need to look for hundreds of papers or to try to understand how to group a micro topic and another micro topic and so on and so forth. So place names are incredibly relevant for the study of historical linguistics, and the book can be, maybe, might be, I hope, it will be useful as a tool for learning toponymy from the scratch. So this is more or less what.
Wow, that's been interesting. For the audience, the editorial in which the book was published, Cambridge University Press, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's one of the most important and relevant editorials of the world in academic writing, right?
Yeah, it is true. They are one of the top with Oxford, Harvard, Routledge. Yeah, we decided Cambridge just because it's Cambridge, and yeah, they were super friendly and super enthusiastic about the idea. So initially the work was really, really nice. I mean, also later in the later stages, but I mean, we had a good impact.
Okay, and then after you have published this book, I guess you are using it, as you said before, with your students and in your lectures at the university and so on and so forth. But are you getting feedback from all other places in the world that are reading the book and are giving you feedback or interesting conversations about the book?
Yeah, first, now, you know, I changed university. So now I am in Xiaojiaotong, Liverpool University in China, and I don't teach toponymy yet here. I teach historical linguistics, history of English, but of course, some of my students have already received the book, they already read it. So of course, I try to use the book for educational purposes, of course, and toponymy is historical linguistics, and so it's always the same the same context. As far as my colleagues, yeah, the book was published in March, so it's quite recent. But some of my colleagues already read it. Of course, they gave me their opinions. I can tell you that the most one of my best friends in life, but the best friends, academic friends in toponymy, Jan Tent, who is a very famous Australian toponymist. He is writing a book in toponymy. So we were not doing any race, any competition. I didn't know that he was writing a book in toponymy because he has already written a number of extraordinary papers in toponymy. But he was very keen on reading the book, and he took a look, and he thought good. So that to me is the best possible compliment, because he's it's not only a friend, but of course it's a master, is a point of reference. So yeah, and now we will see. Probably some reviews will come out. Maybe they will be extremely negative. Who knows? In the book, there are some sort of experimental reconstructions. We tried to of course, to follow sound established methodologies and the comparative method, so from the 18th century. But there are some experimental reconstructions based on not only the historical phonetic, historical phonological, historical morphological interpretation of place names, but also with the interpretation of the meaning, so with the historical semantics of place names. So we changed some etymologies. We try to provide the readers with some alternatives, something like that, not by saying, oh, this is the reconstruction or this is the new reconstruction, just by saying it may be. We were not there with the prehistoric speakers. We were not there talking with them. We have no prehistoric speakers to ask directly, but what does this place name mean? And so we have tried to provide a range of options. So maybe some reviewers will not like it. Maybe they will not like it.
Well,
what is this? What is this? Yeah.
But it always happens in any kind of research, linguistics, chemistry, in any field. It always happens. You do the best book, whatever in the world, and then you get always kind of reviews, right? Okay, so talking now about the book, and as for the audience to understand a little bit how the process is, I understand about the little bit that I read in your book that you explore the places of the names, and then you try to provide kind of explanation about how the name evolved during time. And then, as you said before, I guess there are kind of classical methods or classical procedures, but in this case, you use kind of alternative method, this experimental approach that you were talking about. Okay, can you quickly tell us how is this procedure? I don't know if you kind of try to get all the information in the literature about this place, I guess, and all related information, and then you use some tools in order to get information about how the name evolves, or how is the procedure?
Yeah, the procedure is complex, and it depends on how old a place name is or can be. So if the place name is prehistoric, you think that the place name is prehistoric, you need to do documentary research up to a point in which there is no more documentation, there is no more writing. So I don't know, you take a place name, you go back in time in the last centuries, and then you look at medieval documents, for example, from the Middle Ages, you see, oh, if it is in Europe, was this place name already there under the Romans? Did the Romans conquer this place and they changed the place name? So we have two different versions. One is the Roman one and the other one is the pre-Roman one. And what happened before the Romans, and so on and so forth. And then you get to a point in time in which there was no more, there is not yet writing. At that point, of course, like you told, you need to apply the comparative methodology. So you needed to compare that version of the place name you have with other lexical items from the same language, say Celtic, I don't know, to other languages, say Germanic, Latin, Greek, Sanskrit, and whatever, and to see how the place name could have been produced in the shape you have, and what could it be an more ancient form. We call that form proto-form, which is a proto word. It is a proto, not because it didn't exist. It is proto just because it is not written, so not attested in a written document. And from there, you try to connect the proto-form to its root. What is a root in historical linguistics? Is the mother of a family of words, which can be, I don't know, a family of words for names of animals, names of plants, names of everything. And if you are able to connect your place name with those family of words, you can look at the possible origin. So this place name was called this way because it was called after a tree, or it was called after an animal, or it was called after a, I don't know, a phenomenon of heavenly bodies, planets, stars, and so on and so forth. So this is more or less the procedure when you try to get back in time to and towards prehistory, so in time without writing. Then it depends. Maybe it is not necessary. Maybe you have a medieval name, and for the medieval name you just stick to medieval documents, and in that case your analysis is a little bit less historical linguistic, so a sort of chain towards the past, and it is more documentary. You look at the documents and you try to see if the place name is affected by a phenomenon which is called paretymology. Paretymology is a folk etymology, a wrong etymology. The example I always provide my students with is an Italian place. You are Spanish, so you understand clearly. It's called, this place is called Borgo Male. Borgo is a village, you know, and Male is bad, evil, and so on and so forth. And so it's a bad village, an evil village, or something like that. And this, everyone wonders why this village is so bad. It's a beautiful village, vineyards around, very nice people, very small, a beautiful castle. So why this place is so bad? And you go to the speakers. You go to the village and you ask them before even starting your documentary research, and they have a story. They tell you the village is not bad, but it is called Bad Village because during the Black Plague, during the Black Death, the plague, the different waves, the village was hit so strong that almost everyone died. And indeed, now they are like 200 inhabitants. And so since we were hit so much, we were thinking it was sort of a curse, something like that. We called the village Borgo Male, the village of the bad, the evil, that kind of evil, so the Black Plague. And you say, okay, this is the story. So let's double check it. Let's look for medieval chronicles and post-medieval chronicles saying that Borgo Male was hit, or the area of Borgo Male was hit by the plague. And you find nothing. You go to the church, you go to the parish, you look for the registers, the records of people who died and people who were born during that specific fork range of time, and you see that there are no variations, always the 200 inhabitants. So you say, okay, they have given me the story, it is the explanation of the name of the village, but there are no historical records attesting this. So the plague didn't hit particularly violently the place. So this etymology provided by the speakers, by the inhabitants, it's a par etymology, it's a fake etymology. It is because they needed to explain why their place is bad. They don't want that their place is bad, so they had to create a story. And over the centuries, this story has become true for them. They believe that that is the real origin of the name. But if you look at the documents, and if you look just around, you go in the village, you walk there, you look at the coat of the emblem of the municipality, you will see that there is the hill of Borgo Male. Borgo Male is located on a hill, and rather than vineyards, now there are vineyards, so you don't find vineyards in the proto-forms. You find trees which are apple trees, and there is also a bear who is eating an apple from the apple tree. And then you go to the records and you will discover that now it's all vineyards, but in the Middle Ages and also a little bit later, the area of Borgo Male was dotted in apples. So there were orchards of apples. The apples of Borgo Male, they were famous. And so you think, because you are classically trained, you know a little bit of Latin, and so you know that in Latin there are two words which are malum. Malum with short A means bad. Malum with long A means apple. In Italian, long A has become E. So malum has become mela, apple. And short A has become A. So malum has become male, bad. Therefore, the name of the village was Burgus Mali, but Mali with long A, so not the village of the bad thing or the village of the evil, but the village of the apple, the village of the apple trees. And it's a good name. It's a descriptive name. It's normal. You don't need to go back to prehistoric times, and it's exactly the name of the village. Therefore, when you don't need to go back to prehistory before writing, so to apply all this kind of historical phonetic, historical phonological reconstruction, you make a documentary research. Generally, you try to spot paretymologies. So, of course, you don't believe to the explanation that you find readily available by the speakers. And you will have surprises, like this one of Borgomale, which is not the evil village at all, but it's the village of the apple or the village of the apple trees, and so on and so forth. So this is more or less the procedure. Of course, it depends on a case-by-case basis. We are talking about Europe, big bodies of literature, big documentation, big everything. Go in a desert island to do language documentation, go in an Aboriginal context, it's all different. You don't find anything apart from the speakers in 2023, diaries of missionaries or reports by colonizers. They are always very ambiguous. Maybe you have some topographic map, but the places are the places. So you just ask the speaker, what is the name of this village? And then you ask for the explanation. And even when the explanation is transparent, you will have always some puzzles. You go in Indonesia, you ask them, what is the name of this village? And then they tell you, this is very simple. It's the village of the mango trees. So you say, okay, because here there are mango trees. But there are no mango trees. There is no mango at all. And you ask the elders, and you ask them, but do you remember mango trees here? No, they don't remember. And so you say, okay, if there were mango trees, they are before this generation of all the people in this village. And then you ask them and you re-ask them, and then you go to look for a storyteller, and then they will tell you there is a guy who lives in a cave, you have to go there and to talk with him, and you will discover that he will tell you a story. He will tell you a story about a mango tree and about a hero who was doing I don't know what, and went under that mango tree to rest. But the story maybe was not even the story of that place. It was a story imported by some guys who had to migrate from one part of the island to that part of the island. And so the mango trees were not there, but they were in the other part of the island. So this is called imported place name. So in that case, you don't do any historical linguistic reconstruction. You don't do any documentary reconstruction because there are no documents. You just do field linguistics. You stay with the speakers, you talk with them, you make some little detective work, you chase them, you chase the storyteller, you chase the owner of the story, and in the end you will discover that maybe the simple mango tree village is not that simple, because there are no mango trees. There was never a mango tree there. There is a story about mango trees, but the story comes from, I don't know, 50 kilometers far, and so on and so forth. This is exactly the work that Shiyue is doing now. She's working with native speakers, and she's trying to chase them to extract the data from stories and oral traditions. Yeah.
It's very interesting. I have here two questions. Well, I had one question while you were giving this explanation, but you already answered the question. But the next is, when you perform this kind of detective work, how long can it take on average? Like you talk with the native people and you talk with this other guy, which is in another part of the island. How on average, this is the work that Shiyue is working at the moment, right, Shiyue?
Yeah. And now we are like restrict in China. Now we cannot go to the land to do the real field work. So mainly we arrange like 2 hours meeting online, but it's a little bit hard to like finish all of the questions I want to ask, because we ask one questions and they may give you the answer, and then they may come up with a lot of another like associations about your questions. Like I ask them how do they use their counting system, and then they may have some another associations about their sayings, their proverbs, about the quantifiers of the numbers and other things. So it may usually, although we want to arrange like a meeting in 2 hours, but I think if you do the real field work, it requires a long time about this.
Okay, okay. And one ignorant question. I mean, I have been reading a little bit this paper, which is called The Legend of Lamo Ling, which is some island. Here, of course, you need to communicate with native people there. How do you do this? You use some kind of intermediate translator, or you learn a little bit the language? But I guess these languages, because there is some other paper, some other work from you where you say some of these places are not documented. So how do you communicate with these people?
Yeah, so it depends, of course. Before answering your question, I just answered the previous question on my side, just because I can be the dad of Shiyue, so I'm older. You told me how long does it take? When we were in Alor, the island we are working on in Southeastern Indonesia, we were trying to reconstruct a story about a snake, a god snake. I can tell you that the first time we met the story was 2003. The first version of the story we got from a speaker, but to get the full version of the story, all the contents, all the place names, all the plot, the whole plot, we needed to chase the real storyteller. It's called the owner of the story. And that took until 2014. So we met the story for the first time in 2003, and then we got the full, hopefully, the full version of the story in 2014. So 11 years of fieldwork. When, of course, when you work in a university, you need to teach to be in the university for the semesters. So generally the fieldwork is summer fieldwork. You can stay 30 days, you can stay 2 months with the speakers. But in any case, for all those fieldworks, all those years, we were chasing this ghost of this guy who was on the top of a mountain, literally. And in the end, we were able to find him, to persuade him to provide us with the story. So it was a very, very long process. For the other question you ask, yeah, it's more technical. It depends on how good you are with Aboriginal languages, how the extent of the time you have to learn them. In our case, and the papers you were mentioning, they are about the Abui language from Alor Island, Timor, Southeast Indonesia. Abui is a Papuan language from that small island. In my case, there are years and years now that I work on Abui. I know a little bit of Abui. In case of emergency, I can be understood by the speakers just because I have been with them. But the point is that for the linguistic analysis, I need a consultant, a speaker. We have a Abui speaker. His name is Benny Benedictus del Pada, who is also the consultant of Shiyue. And he is trained in linguistics. He has a master in linguistics from NTU, but he lives in the islands. So he is the guy who materially interacts with the speakers who are not bilingual, who don't speak English. They just speak their language, and then Bahasa Indonesia, of course, Indonesian. So he interacts with them. He also looks for them according to his experience. So he says, this person can know this story, or this person is expert, I don't know, in the names of the trees. So we talk with him or with her about the trees of their islands and so on and so forth. And he's the guy also who double checks the information we receive, because we record, we transcribe, we try to interpret and to analyze, but Benny is always the one who says, okay, this word is real Abui, or look, you have transcribed wrongly this word, and so on and so forth. So yeah, theoretically and in general, especially then if you switch to another language, or if you are working on a group of languages from an island or from a territory, you need one or more local consultants. And this is easy when you have already some links to the local people. The study of Abui lately has been conducted by NTU, now by me in Xi'an Jiaotong Liverpool University, but was started in early 2000 from the University of Leiden in the Netherlands. So those guys were the first guys having contacts with the Abui people and establishing connections to have then consultants. And then we expanded the team. There are peoples, indigenous peoples, Aboriginal peoples who are a little less available, even in that island. And so it's more difficult to have a reliable or stable team of consultants. In that case, of course, it's better to be in the island to try to establish relationships to be accepted by the community, and that requires time, of course. Not all of them want to talk with you. They are super nice, they are super friendly, they give you everything they have, but sometimes they don't want to talk with you because you are considered, of course, external, a foreigner. So they don't want to provide you with their oral traditions because they say, this is our soul, this is our cultural identity, it belongs to us. It's even if they are myths, to them they are history. They are in history, they know everything, they have the television, I mean, but to them it's their intimate history. And so sometimes it's difficult to them just to give it to you because you are not a member of the community, you didn't grow up with them, and so on and so forth. So yeah, the suggestion to all students in field linguistics who works on the field is learn the local language. But sometimes there is not enough time. Sometimes the local language is terribly difficult. Sometimes you are working on a group of languages, and so it's even more difficult to learn or to master them all. So consultants are really essential. Our Benny is very valuable. When he doesn't escape, sometimes it's impossible to find him, and that is a problem. It's a bit elusive, huh? A bit elusive.
Okay, I mean, it's very interesting. And another question would be, why do you decide, for instance, in this work, for the audience, don't worry, I will put all the links in the show notes. But for instance, in this work called La Molin Beaka, in this island, why do you take the decision or the motivation to study this part of the world and not another part of the world? Because, for instance, as you said before, in Europe, there is a lot of documentation because written form and everything. But when you go to these islands, it's more complicated, like you said. But why do you decide at some point to study some island in Indonesia or other part of the world?
The idea, the basic idea, I mean, in general, all language documentaries working on all the languages is that these languages are dying. There are very few speakers. The new generations don't speak anymore these languages, and so one generation or just 10 years and the language will be not spoken and not spoken anymore. If you don't record it, if you don't make a grammar of it, if you don't document it, that language will disappear forever. No one will ever know that it existed. And you know, there are 7,000 languages in the world now. I don't know, just some hundreds are documented or have a body of literature, I don't know, dead or alive. And all the others are not documented, or they have not a written tradition. Among them, a lot are endangered. Just you have, I don't know, 500 speakers. New generations generally don't speak those languages anymore. Think about Indonesia. Everyone speaks Bahasa Indonesia, the language of Indonesia. But all the Papuan, Austronesian, and other minorities, they don't study their languages in school. So the main target is everywhere, Australia, Amazonia, wherever in the world. The main target is, as a linguist, is to safeguard these languages. Maybe by doing that, you save or safeguard also a bit linguistics, because linguistics today is really sinking, is becoming something strange. But yeah, the aim is to protect these languages. Why we have chosen Indonesia? Okay, in NTU, it's because we were in Singapore, so it's also for a geographical point. But it's just because of the experiences of the linguists who were there in that moment. The professor, František Kratochvil, now he's in Czech Republic in Palacký University in Olomouc, but he was a professor in NTU to me. He was coming from Leiden in the Netherlands. And Leiden was the university who took first contacts with the Abui people in Alor Island. Therefore, he decided to focus on these people, and NTU was the ideal place because we were relatively close from Singapore to Timor, more or less. So that was an opportunity of geography, previous contacts, and the fact that we had the native speakers who were already our consultants, and the fact that in the island, it's not only spoken Abui, but a lot of other languages which are not attested, which are endangered, which are not documented. And so that was allowing us, was giving us the opportunity to expand, to document not only one language, but a set of languages belonging to the same local language family. And so not only to document them, but to compare them and maybe to reconstruct the language all these Papuan peoples were speaking before, thousands and thousands of years ago, when they arrived in that island. The same motivation is the motivation of all the language documentarists in the world. Here we are in China. Many language documentarists, Chinese and non-Chinese, they work on the languages of minority peoples all over China, in remote villages, and so on and so forth. One of the members of our team, George, before working on Abui, on Papua and Indonesian languages, he was working in Amazonia. So, I mean, it's all a mix of experiences. Point is that there are not enough linguists to document all these languages. So it's
right.
Really impossible, mission impossible.
Yeah, it's complicated, but it's very interesting.
But there is a Shiyue. She is the new generation. She has a lot of years in front of her, and she's already very promising. The last days she was interviewing our speakers. She discovered a lot of things that after 20 more years I didn't know. So you see, it's a continuous process, and really it goes generation by generation, not only for the speakers, but also for the linguists. Okay.
I will get later into that. I have another question. I guess there are, reading a little bit your papers, there are some common reasons about why some cities give their names, or the reasons kind of religion, the mango tree, the apple tree, and so on and so forth. But my question is, studying some remote places, have you ever found something that was totally unexpected when explaining the names of the places?
Yeah, I understand your question. It depends on what you mean with a
something that was not something that didn't happen before. I guess this is very complicated because people tend to give the name of the places following religion or traditions and so on and so forth, but I don't know, something that was not expected at all.
The not expected is the impenetrable place name. So it's a place name, and there are which you cannot explain. You can just try, you can just propose hypotheses, but those hypotheses, they are not even convincing for yourself. And so, yeah, especially this, I have to say, doesn't happen in my experience in Aboriginal or indigenous context. It happens some more in Europe. Europe has still some very prehistoric, ununderstandable place names. They are so stratified, multi-layered over time. They have undergone so many changes in population and settlement dynamics or whatever, that even if you are super trained, even if you know everything about place names, even if you have compared everything, in the end you say, how can I explain this place name? Sometimes the explanation is very simple, apparently is there, but in order to give it, you have to betray your knowledge, you have to betray the laws of historical phonetics, and so you do that, but you don't want to do that, and you don't know how to solve the mystery, the puzzle. So maybe they are very simple, they are connected apparently with water or with the greenery, the vegetation of a place, but in order to make that connection, you have to break them in a way that is not the correct traditional way. And so you say, what happens? You want an example if you have time? I don't know.
Yeah, of course, please.
It's one of the controversial examples in the book. The ones I tell you, probably some linguists will say, what is this? What is this? So there is a place in Italy. It's a very small village. It's called Squaneto. 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 What is this place name? No one knows. No one knows. It's really difficult. It's impenetrable. You can try to reconstruct it traditionally, and you will get that it can mean in Indo-European meadows, flowers in the meadows, and stuff like that, which means everything and nothing, because you would have to suppose that there were flowers in that meadow and that prehistoric people have given that name. But generally, prehistoric places are not connected with that kind of description. Prehistoric humans had to survive. They needed water, shelter, food. So they were calling the places according to that, primary goods, water, food, animals, danger, and so on and so forth. They had no map. They had the map in their mind. And so when they were talking, possibly, they had to give a very significant and simple names to their places. So a prehistoric man calling a place after the flowers may indicate that that place has been called in a time in which they had already society. They were already protected. They had not to escape from the wolves and the bears. They had already the stomach full. And you don't know, that place seems too ancient for that kind of naming process. So what do? You do when you don't do, you do when you don't do. You look at the name, Squaneto, Squaneto, Squaneto. What if between S and Q, there were a Saquaneto? If it is a Saquaneto, you cut the S and it's Aquaneto. And agua, it's water. And where is located that place? That place is located on the water, on a very special place of water. It is located on a ford, which allows humans to cross a river. And that ford is there for geological eras, but people were on that ford from at least 38,000 years ago. So the upper Paleolithic, way before Mesolithic, way before Neolithic. Wow. It's so ancient, you have found tracks of these prehistoric inhabitants, humans. There, it's so ancient that clearly those people, whoever they were, clearly they were not Indo-Europeans. The Indo-Europeans arrived later, but clearly those people had a name for that place. And that place was not only a water place where you were going to fish or to drink, but it was a ford. So the most important place for crossing the river in that specific area. So why this place could not be a water place? So Saquaneto, Aquaneto, the place of water. It cannot be. I mean, it may be, but it cannot be because there is that S. And the S is the root consonant. You cannot cut the root consonant. That is a big mistake or a big inappropriate thing in historical linguistics. So you feel that maybe it's for real Saquaneto. There are other places like that. Saquagiato, Squagiato, Saquana. So you say there is a system, but you have not the proof. You are not with the prehistoric speakers. You cannot bend the rules thinking about your discovery. So it's if it is true, it's like when you are a mathematician and you know the solution of a specific problem, but you don't know how to demonstrate it. You know that the solution is correct. Everyone knows maybe, but no mathematician has been able yet to demonstrate it, to give the demonstration. So yeah, maybe they are not very spectacular place names, but they stay here on your stomach and you cannot solve them. You cannot solve them. I talk about some of them in the book, and I'm afraid that they will be penned, they will be destroyed with the other linguists. So this is the unexpected, or the unsolvable in a way. You easily solve it if you don't think about the meaning. You can say, okay, this is the place of the flowers and good night. It works phonetically, morphologically, phonologically. But you say, what flowers? What is it? This is a water place. You look at the inhabitants there way before the Indo-Europeans, and you have a possible explanation, but you have not the tools to make it 100% that.
Okay, so talking about the tools, I'm computational chemist from background. So my question now is, you have a knowledge, Shiyue and you are linguists, so you have some knowledge and you know the state of the art, but do you use also computational tools? Are there kind of databases where you can kind of introduce your hypothesis in order to get additional information about why this place has this name? So in general, can you use computational tools or databases, or even, since we are now at the time of artificial intelligence tools, in order to provide you more information for your research?
I don't use them in historical linguistics itself, but I think I didn't tell you, we work, especially in NTU, we're working on language deciphering. So the decipherment of undeciphered writing systems. And specifically in NTU, we were working on a linear A, the undeciphered writing system from Crete, Minoan language, which is just a name because no one knows the language, since it's impossible to write, to read the writing system. And in that case, since all the attempts at deciphering failed over time, and I work on that since 1999, so a very long time. And I surrendered. I mean, I gave up. I told that there is no solution. It's impossible to decipher this writing system. But so in NTU, we decided just to make a desperate attempt to be, to remove all the biases, everything we knew, everything we believed to know. And we created we wrote a Python program, which we implemented with this machine. It's a computer which runs this Python program to make a sort of brute force attack to linear A, so a cryptanalytic brute force attack. We took the possible transcription of linear A on the basis of another writing system called the linear B, which is deciphered, and we took dictionaries from all possible languages possibly compatible with linear A at the level of time, so ancient Egyptian, Amito-Semitic, Hittite, Luvian, Akkadian, and so on and so forth. We made a transcription of linear A, which are really arbitrary, since it is undeciphered. Transcriptions of all those other well-known, documented, and attested languages, and we decided to feed the computer, the machine, with these transcriptions. So we asked the Python program to try to match them. A work that if you do that by hand, you can spend 20 years. The computer does that in some minutes, and then the computer tells you, okay, in this tablet, there is this possible match, or there are these possible matches between linear A, I don't know, and Akkadian. The human element is you take the results, you look how many, so frequency, how many are these possible matches? Where are they? Are they in the tablets of linear A always in the same position? Not same position? Are they random? Are they not random? Are they in all the tablets coming from a specific place, Knossos, the capital city of Crete, or another place, or they are just, again, sparse, random? Are they indicative? So these words are possible words for the contents of these tablets, like items, I don't know, a ship, a sword, or whatever, or are they completely crazy, like sky, sea, and so on and so forth? And by making these comparisons, you try to see if there are possible similarities between the possible language hidden behind the linear A and attested, well-known, documented languages, which are neighboring and more or less contemporary to linear A. It's a desperate attempt. It's the classic brute force attack. You try all the options, but everyone always failed. I failed epically many times.
Wow.
And so this was the last attempt. But since we are talking about computational efforts, this was very computational, because I'm not good in coding. We had our engineer writing the Python program, so we had the idea, but he Colin Law is his name. He implemented it, and now I changed university, but we had a team of research assistants who were working this way. So feeding the program, feeding the machine with these spreadsheets with comprehensive transcriptions, and then manually double checking all the possible matches. If they are just random, if this is just a case, if they can be significant at the level of frequency, position, place of the tablets, amount, I mean quantitative level, and so on and so forth. When I have a new team, I will let you know how this thing is going, is proceeding.
Please. Very interesting, very interesting. Okay, and you have studied many different languages. Can you tell us about, from all your different projects, can you highlight one you liked the most, not because scientific reasons, but because, I don't know, you felt you solved a mystery or a very complicated problem when you could understand a little bit that language? Some preference between your projects?
Yeah, I mean, I understand, of course, your question. It's obvious, but the best project is the next, clearly. I mean, what we have still, what we would have still to solve. I mean, everyone would answer that, I think. So it's not very original, but it is true. Not that I am disappointed by the previous projects. Some of them, they have been, I was also younger, so I was more excited, and they were exciting projects. Now I take everything with a bit of, you know, when you are young, so when you study and when you want to become a linguist, when you hope to become a linguist, you imagine Europe in my time, when I was a student, economic disasters, universities, I mean, you dream to become a linguist, but probably you will not become, or to become it, you need to go on the other side of the world. But in any case, the dream you have of doing the historical linguist is not to reconstruct stuff, but the dream you have is to get back to prehistory and to really give back a voice to the prehistoric guys. They had no writing, they were in a way not represented. And so by reconstructing their words, it's not just to reconstruct their words, but is to make them speak, like when you decipher and decipher language. You do that, of course, because it's a great, exciting discovery, but because you make those stones, those tablets, those documents speak, you can read them finally, if you are able to, of course, and I'm not, but in case. So that is, in a way, the dream. Clearly, the exciting part, which is purely academic, and it's not exciting for all the other people, it's maybe when you are able to demonstrate a theory you had, like you have, let's talk about place names. You have a set of place names. You think that they are all connected. You think that they come all from the same root, but maybe they are sparse on a large area. So you need to demonstrate that they are all connected with the notion of water, that they are all connected with a specific root for water. And despite that they are different, that they are connected, and how those differences have been produced by the voice of speakers over millennia and centuries. When you are able to recreate, to reconstruct a set like that, which is called a toponymic system, it is not relevant. No one cares, but you say, come on, guys, I did it. So that, yeah, it's exciting. It will be still exciting for me now that I'm not excited by anything anymore. So yeah, to answer in a different way to your question is, now we are working on a not well-known document. It's called epigraphic document. It's called the Singapore stone. It's a stone. It's an epigraph. But the British found it in 1819 when Sir Raffles colonized Singapore. It was just a slab, an epigraph at the mouth of the Singapore River. In 1843, they blew it up because they needed to open the mouth of the, and so just some fragments of that inscription in this epigraph were preserved. They were sent to Calcutta, to the museum, British Museum there, because in Singapore there was no museum to be studied, but they had been lost. When Singapore got them back, rather than 3, only 1 went back. And now it's called the Singapore stone. If you go to Singapore, it is in the National Museum. What is so special of this Singapore stone is that the inscription, the characters of the inscription don't exist anywhere else in the world. So we cannot read it. We do not know what kind of writing system is that. There are a lot of hypotheses, some possible identification, but until you are able to read a writing system, that writing system is undeciphered, because it can be similar to this, similar to that, but you cannot read it with the same phonetic values, and so it's undecipherable. So yeah, we have a little project. We are trying to, not to translate it, to decipher it, it's impossible. It's just one document. You have not enough materials. We are trying to reconstruct the missing text of the epigraph based on ancient reproductions by people, generally British people, before the inscription was blown up. And by doing that, of course, we would have more text, more characters. It's not even linguistics, it's philological. So you try to reconstruct the missing text. It will not solve anything, but I'm old enough to be excited by such a thing.
Yeah, of course.
So this is a project in which also Shiyue is involved. She's working also with that. It's just because I force her to work on everything I work on, but I think she enjoys it. I hope she enjoys it.
Okay, so Shiyue, which part of this project do you like the most?
For me, I think most inspiring project is the language documentation project. So because you really have the opportunity to interact with the indigenous people, and then you know what's the meaning of their languages, and how you look through how their words are formed, and then you ask their thoughts of form their words, and then you know their not only the language itself, and also their their ideas. So the interfaces of language and their cognition is very interesting.
Wow.
She is working on their mainly now on their numbering systems, on counting. She's making some discoveries about how indigenous people count differently from us at the cognitive level, how they make additions, not additions, how they compose their numbers. And now she's even studying how they are counting, with the hands, the different ways of counting with the hands. They are surprising.
Okay, this will be Yeah.
Like we open our hand when we count. They close their hand when we count. So they start already with the numbers all outside. But she knows better than me. I'm just going through her discoveries. Yeah, please.
Oh.
Yeah, so there are mainly like 5 kinds of like finger counting systems in the world. So like Europeans, you are counting like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But for China and USA, we are counting like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But like for Iran people, they count like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But for Papua New Guinea people, they counting like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then for sign languages, they count like oh my god, like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I forgot. The sign language is a little bit complex. It's not very like in a sequential order, but like it's just
so different.
Yeah, it's different, and then it may like to indicate different kind of mindset of people, and then may relate it to their culture, their traditions, and for the Papua New Guinean people, I think because when I asked about their counting system and how they count about the numbers, they always told me how they are like counting the rice, the corns when they are doing the harvest. They harvest the coins and the rice, and then they may grouping them and then count them in different ways, and then also about their prices when they are doing trade with others. So when they're asking numbers, they're not always like give me some specific numbers they may use in their life, or rather they just give me the activities they do when they are using these numbers, and usually they're connected with their agriculture and also the trade and some traditions they have.
Okay, so this will be your first paper.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I think you have lots of motivation in doing this. Lots of luck on this project. I think it will get. And please tell us when this paper is online so that we can read a little bit about these systems. Okay, great. I think it was very interesting. We are getting to the end of the episode. So my last question would be totally unexpected, and then it is not about science. It is about science fiction. I don't know because it depends on you. If you watch a movie called The Arrival.
Oh yeah, Arrival, yeah.
You know, there is this movie
they made it
watch
also in the university. Our department in NTU, I watched it independently, but our department in NTU, there was a professor, Randy Lapolo was there, a famous language documentarist. He asked the students to watch it. Yeah, Arrival.
Really?
Because of the linguistic component.
Okay, so just for the audience, the plot is that there is some aliens that come to Earth, and then some linguists, right, try to communicate with them in order to understand their language. The movie was very interesting because first, the main character was a linguistic, which is great. And yeah, but you know, movies always try to exaggerate things, but from a linguistic point of view, do you think this movie was kind of accurate, or it made sense, the way they try to get the language of the aliens?
Yeah, it is. She reconstructed in a way, the single components of the language. Of course, not phonetics phonology. She reconstructed a bit the morphology of the language, and so she was able to. It is not a fiction procedure. It's like you would do for documenting the language. Of course, a language you cannot hear mainly. So documenting the language based on symbols. But yeah, it's a linguistic procedure. So no, the procedure was quite accurate, or in a fictional set, how a linguist could proceed. For this reason, in my previous department in NTU, they asked the students to watch it, because it was not just fiction, but it was fiction with real linguistic components. Yeah. So the analysis was not just fanciful. No, no, no. Yeah, it was in my interpretation, it was essentially morphological, which is good, a good perspective. Yeah.
Very interesting. Meaningful. Okay, so thanks a lot. It's has been a pleasure to learn so many things about your work. I think it's really interesting. As I said before, I will leave in the show notes all the links to the very interesting research that Francesco and Shiyue and their group do. And yeah, so it was a lot of pleasure to talk with you. Wish you lots of luck in your research, and please keep us updated with the new things that you publish.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. You have been super kind and a great interview. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.